What is good, YouTube? We back with a little react. You feel me? Sit back, grab some snacks. The bowl is empty. Relax. You feel me? Your boy Slides here. Today we're gonna be reacting to cartoons that can beat Omni-Man, the Roundtable. It's a pretty long video for my first react, but we're gonna do a couple reacts and just see how it goes. Yeah. Without further ado.
With Invincible being one of the biggest animated series of our generation, people love pitting Viltrumites against various fictional characters, usually from comics or anime, but we seldom see them go up against the likes of other cartoons, despite Invincible thriving in an animated medium. And I think that's kinda whack, because there are plenty of overpowered cartoon characters that could put Nolan, Anissa, or even Conquest in a body bag. So I assembled a list of over 10 characters from the most iconic animated series of all time, alongside
we got Danny Phantom, Powerpuff Girls. I'm kind of lost on the corner. We got Rick, Uncle Grandpa, Rigby. I'm sure Mordecai's behind him.
Some wild cards to see if they can take on Viltrum's greatest soldiers. Don't think too hard about it, that's my job. Also, for simplicity's sake, I'm putting these characters up against Omni-Man in particular. Next to Mark, he's more or less the face of Invincible, but unlike his son, he can actually win most of his fights without completely destroying his body. Young Denny Fenton was just 14 when his parents built a very strange machine. Electroshock therapy.
Gonna catch him.
Danny Phantom has an insane arsenal of abilities that makes him a formidable foe for Omni-Man to deal with. Now, if Omni-Man is able to land a few solid blows on Danny, not holding back whatsoever, it's probably lights out. Luckily, a lot of Danny's ghost powers are great for playing defense.
Indeed,
not only does he have supernatural reflexes,
his stats is amped. He can phase. I'm pretty sure they can possess people too. And there's a lot more. I haven't seen Danny Phantom in a minute, but just off top of my dome, bro. This is one of my goats, bro.
His durability, agility, endurance, and speed. He's also able to turn intangible, turn invisible, and he has spectral body manipulation, which makes him quite malleable. Omni-Man would have a hard time even touching Danny because the boy can just phase through all of his attacks and hide in plain sight with his invisibility. But obviously defenses have the battle. Even if he baited Nolan into using all of his stamina and tired him out, he'd still need to be able to finish the job. That's where his more offensive powers come into play. There are two specific abilities that I think gives Danny the edge over Nolan. As recently uncovered in Season 3 of Invincible, Viltrumites have a huge vulnerability to high-frequency noise. It throws off their equilibrium, practically immobilizes them, and could very well be fatal. And Danny's most powerful ability just so happens to be his ghostly wail, a supersonic blast consisting of pure ecto-energy that is capable of mass destruction. It was instrumental in Dark Danny's conquest of the future, reducing everything outside of an armored amity part to rubble. Suffice to say, I think the ghostly wail could be the Viltrumite killer, or at the very least, incapacitate them, leaving one open for a finishing blow. But there is one major drawback. The ghostly wail tends to be a last resort because it usually drains Danny of all his energy. His evil future counterpart managed to master it, using the ability without physical exhaustion, but considering he's a fusion of two half-ghosts, our Danny would probably have to train a lot harder to pull that off. Although he was able to use it 3 times in a row in the finale, so he very well could be getting a handle on it. Still, it'd only be wise to use it if he's absolutely sure no one's been worn down enough for it to work as a finishing blow. It's viable, but it's risky.
Okay, you got
one more trick he may have up his sleeve. Overshadowing. The ability to possess someone at will. Although, if their will is stronger than Danny's, the target can eject him from their body. When it comes to Nolan, I'm not sure if he has an unshakable will after Chicago. He's constantly at war with himself and considered ending his life before. And Danny's the type of guy to plead with his enemies, saying stuff like, "You don't have to do this." So the chances of him sending post-Chicago Nolan to a mental spiral are far from zero. Nolan would still be aggro, but he'd lack an iron will. If Danny has to 4-on-1 on Nolan, I don't think it'd take much to get in his head figuratively or literally, allowing him to hijack his body and, well, have you seen that one tweet about Elon with the Spider-Verse gif? Something like that, but into a black hole. So, could Danny Phantom beat and even kill Omni-Man? Yes. Yes, he can. And with the ghostly wail, I imagine he could take on a lot.
I agree. I think with the other, we're not gonna go through all of them. We can get through like half. With Avatar, We can skip Powerpuff Girls. Ben 10 is another one of my goats. And then those I'm unfamiliar with. Oh, we got Word Girl in here though. Okay. So we're gonna do Danny, Aang, skip to Ben, skip to Rick, and then skip to Steven, and that'll be it. Cause like those are the most people I know the most about. I know Word Girl to go from way back when. We'll do that. That way, like, I can make a prediction. It gotta be a reaction. I'm gonna make a prediction before he like goes into his, you feel me, stats and stuff. All right, bet. All right, let's go.
A lot of the other Viltrumites as well. The Avatar, master of all four elements whose capabilities far surpass the average bender. With the synopsis for the new series hitting that the Avatar is way more powerful than we could have ever imagined,
I think
it could definitely contend with Omni-Man. But could they actually kill him?
I think they're limited by physical
that
strength.
depends on which Avatar he's dealing with. For the sake of this thought experiment, let's look at both Aang and Korra, the two avatars we spent plenty of time with over the decades. Right off the bat, you have to have them in the Avatar state. The heightened abilities provided by the Avatar state is their best bet at not only avoiding getting one-shotted into a pile of guts, but matching Nolan's brute strength with their own insane feats. Plus, the Avatar state helps them fly, so kind of a no-brainer. There are so many impressive things that normal benders can do, on top of the godlike acts only the Avatar can pull off, that it's hard for me to imagine a Viltrumite wiping the floor with them, at least without a great fight. Seasoned benders can form armor around their bodies with either earth bending or water bending, alongside various weapons. Water benders can heal themselves, although obviously this isn't
the earth, like, protection thing is cool, but it had to be really dense. But he said they're in the Avatar state, so like we've seen, it would be crazy. Because I think the base Earth defense will be good against someone like Mark, but against someone who's not holding back, a Viltrumite not holding back, like they breaking through that. But I think in this case it turns out well because they're in Avatar state, which means all their stats are amped, and they're using Part 1 Nolan. So I think defensively, I think that is a viable argument, but I think in any other case, no.
Instantaneous, even if they're the Avatar. Waterbenders also have blood bending on their side, allowing them to puppet around their opponent's body, render them unconscious, and all sorts of dark shit we haven't seen in an Avatar show yet, like the ability to crush someone's internal organs. That's canon. We made a video about it. I definitely think Viltrumites are just as susceptible to bloodbending as anyone else. Strength be damned. You're fighting the Avatar. Airbenders are already hard to lay a hand on, but with air being everywhere in the atmosphere, they have an advantage fighting in the sky or just about anywhere. The most lethal advantage being the ability to siphon air from the lungs of their targets, suffocating them in the process. Granted, Viltrumites can hold their breath for a long time, so it's possible that Nolan could break free before enough air is taken out of his lungs for him to choke. Now, this is a minor comic spoiler. Skip to the timestamp on screen if you don't want to
I read the comics.
But apparently Viltrumites have a weakness to intense heat, which leads me to believe that firebending is going to be one of Korra and Aang's most vital elements in this brawl, especially since the Avatar state enables enhanced heat control, which allows them to alter temperatures. There's also combustion bending, which, even if it doesn't blow a Viltrumite into pieces, it could do some damage. All of these elements also allow them to create and weaponize natural disasters. Air vortexes, tsunamis, earthquakes, fire comets, you name it. I haven't even gotten to all of the insane shit various avatars have pulled off. Kyoshi creating Kyoshi Island by splitting the peninsula of Yokoya, Korra tearing open a portal to the spirit world, Zeto lava bending multiple volcanoes, Aang raising the freaking sea level. Hell, the new Avatar series is on the horizon, and allegedly, Korra was able to reshape the entire world into 7 havens. We definitely need some more context on that, but surely that gives Viltrumites.
I can't wait to see that new series. I'm excited for that Avatar Aang movie as well, bro. Ooh, boy, we eat good, man. Excuse me, but that's Avatar fan. We eating pretty good. I'm just saying.
Ultram a run for their money. Suffice to say, I think both Aang and Korra would be capable of ending a Viltrumite like Nolan. But obviously, there's a giant elephant in the room that accompanies this whole idea.
Their durability?
Aang is against killing. He'll avoid taking lives at any cost. And despite the cruelty of the Viltrum Empire, I don't know if the threat of one is enough to push him past the breaking point. As crazy as that may sound. He might get killed before he gets the...
If people don't realize, like, Aang is the last airbender, so it's within his character arc and within his right as a character as the last airbender to uphold their customs, which includes kind of like that pacifism. And if he loses that, no one else exists who has it. And that would literally make him the last airbender. And then once he breaks those customs, an airbender no longer. But I do think in terms of ability, who became a master at 12 is very capable of running these ones. But yeah, will he pull the trigger? That's what's in question.
The chance to defeat one with non-lethal means. Holding back and finding a different resolution would be his downfall. Korra, however, isn't as opposed to taking a life when the lives of innocents are on the line. She already put her uncle in a body bag, and I imagine she'd understand quickly that a fight with a Viltrumite is a fight to the death.
To rise to life's challenges, monarchs go beyond the classroom, roll up our sleeves, and dig.
So yeah,
unsponsored,
Aang
by the
can't
way.
get the job done, Korra can. And it just comes down to morality. Korra haters, please don't hurt me. However, I do wonder if it's possible for Aang or any avatar to nerf a Viltrumite via bloodbending or energy bending. I know Aang is against bloodbending as it's regarded as a dark art, but just stick with me here. Amon was able to use bloodbending to block the chi paths for other benders, reducing them to ordinary humans. And energy bending is a huge enigma that we don't fully understand. But if these are able to block bending, is it possible that they could be used on aliens like Viltrumites to block or at least severely downgrade their abilities? Like, could blood bending or energy bending block their ability to fly? Could it slow down their healing factor? What about their speed or strength? Since we don't know for sure, I'm not going to qualify it, but I still want to throw it out there as something to ponder about. That, yeah, maybe Aang could take one down without taking their life.
No.
Chew on that.
Made you think.
The Powerpuff Girls are basically mini Viltrumites themselves while having plenty.
I'm not watching these. My goat.
Quest.
I'm immediately saying yes. Feedback. Big chill. There's so many statements for these aliens, let alone peak Viltrumite Ben.
Alright, you know I had to bring Ben 10 into this, simply because the Omnitrix has an expansive library of alien DNA, capable of scanning new ones at any moment and allowing Ben to transform into those aliens. So I assume we would all immediately jump to the idea of him scanning Viltrumite DNA and engaging in Mortal Kombat. I also can't help but wonder if he has any aliens already in the Omnitrix who could give even the most powerful Viltrumites a hard time. To ensure we really do Ben justice, I want to hand it off to one of the Ben 10 experts. Someone who's quickly climbing the ranks of action cartoon channels on this platform, Dan Boy Wonder. Take it away, homie.
Ben 10 is looked at as one of the strongest characters in fiction these days, and I strongly believe he has the capability to beat Omni-Man. While Viltrumites are a powerful race and no
Xenoverse theme in the back,
soldiers, Ben would
only OGs know about that Xeno theme.
Already be well equipped to handle someone like Nolan. Ben's catalog of aliens gives Ben the potential to match up with anyone he goes against. In this case against Nolan, Ben would frequent between his powerhouse aliens like Forearms, Humongousaur, and Way Big, who would be his best option in a battle of strength against Nolan. Sure. And if Ben wanted to, he could add to his strength options by of course scanning Nolan's DNA and becoming a Viltrumite himself. While a Viltrumite transformation for Ben, who I would call indestructible, could help Ben in this fight, I don't think that would be his path to victory. There's a chance that Nolan's thousands of years of experience could come back to bite Ben in a Viltrumite versus Viltrumite battle, as I'm sure Nolan has tons of experience fighting his own kind, which we actually do see him do that a lot in the show. So instead, I think Ben should rely on his other and more unique transformations, like a Gravitack, whose gravity abilities could help Ben nullify Nolan's insane movement speeds. You also have Goop, who has been shown to restrain many superpowered individuals, and if Nolan's strength is a problem, Goop would be able to absorb most of his hits. Season 3 of Invincible showcased Viltrumite's weakness to a certain pitch of sound, and this information could be vital to Ben since he has access to Echo Echo, an alien who is made of sound and can manipulate manipulated heavily. Now the pitch is very specific, so Echo would have to figure out exactly what it is, but considering his duplication ability and his mastery of sound, where he can do things like send his sound waves through his cell phone, I believe Ben could find the pitch just through trial and error. You also have to take into account Ben's ability to switch between these forms, which could cause massive problems for Nolan. Now,
very important, the ability for him to switch between like your way big to feedback to humongous or big chill, even shoot ghost freak. There's a lot of win cons and hacks for Ben in this situation, and Omnitrix is too fast to be speed blitz, so it's like I got Ben every time.
Nolan, of course, is no slouch. He's held his own against overwhelming odds before, like in Season 2 where he and Mark took on 3 other Viltrumites, or in Season 1 when he took on the Guardians of the Globe. But in that fight against the Guardians, that did take a lot of energy out of Nolan, showing that there is a chance he can be overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Ben's arsenal of
back
aliens
there.
could prove too much for Nolan to handle, and that's without me even mentioning some of his more powerful aliens, like an Atomics or a Clockwork, or even the Omnitrix's failsafe that prevents Ben from dying. I also feel like I'm forgetting something else that Ben has, like this really powerful alien who's practically a god. He can do shit like, you know,
We're
bring
not
back
even gonna
the entire
talk about
world
Alien
blown
next,
up.
bro.
But I don't know, maybe I'm tripping, but
Not
you
a
know, either way,
fair
yeah, Ben
discussion.
Solos.
Bill Cipher is a near omnipotent dream demon.
I don't
who
know
can
about
do-
bro. You going straight to Rick?
That doesn't
Prep
happen.
time.
This is probably where I start pissing people off because Rick and Morty is either a show you like or despise with great intensity. I just couldn't help but to throw the cynical asshat of a scientist in here because he's probably one of the only few human beings without explicit superpowers who could go toe to toe with a Viltrumite and live to tell the tale. This man has fought a god before.
Yeah, forget prep time.
Well,
Some of
I
his
wouldn't
base
say
abilities
one,
be
but
strong.
the other guy's not alive anymore, so that's not nothing. Aside from his high intellect and absurd amount of protocols, he's pretty much Donald on steroids.
Cyborg,
with an
yeah.
absurd amount of cybernetic enhancements. Look at this. Bro's build is Doc Ock's dream, and Rick just casually patched it into his body. Not only does he have a suit that seems capable of taking any attack that's thrown at him, but he has this thing where he injects himself with a substance, shoots out a giant blobby version of himself, and then both of them have this orange force field around them that absorbs any kinetic energy from attacks, that then supercharges Rick and gives him a temporary boost in strength with that energy. We can't say for sure this could tank a hit from a Viltrumite, but we have no reason to believe it wouldn't. And if Rick was able to clap someone's head off after getting whacked with some double-sided blades, I could only imagine that returning a blow from someone like Omni-Man or Conquest would knock them on their feet, if not flat out kill them if it's strong enough to pierce their skin. We also can't forget Rick's portal gun, a device that's used in combat plenty of times, and pretty much allows him to fight like Angstrom, which we know is a pretty disorienting experience for Mark, being thrown into any dimension at a moment's notice and having to anticipate any incoming attacks from a portal.
Especially with Rick
Considering
being
Rick and Morty has shown that portal
Especially with Rick being smarter than Angstrom and not actually like mentally messed up in it. I think he would definitely take advantage of that.
can very easily function as death traps. Lying into one carelessly might be a fatal mistake for the opposing Viltrumite. Rick tends to be pretty well researched and has traversed much of the galaxy, so odds are Viltrum would already be on his radar, with Rick already privy to their biggest secrets. So he'd have the gadgets necessary to take them on in battle, if not develop them over the course of a confrontation. How so? Well, Rick has a protocol that's active in every single dimension within the central finite curve, potentially even beyond it. Operation Phoenix. Whenever Rick kicks the bucket, his mind is uploaded into a brand new body, even if that means being reborn in another dimension. So if he died fighting a Viltrumite, he would just keep coming back like a cockroach, no matter what they do. If they found and destroyed a stash of cloned bodies waiting in one dimension, it still wouldn't be long before he's thrown out of a portal gun, good as new and ready to brawl. And every instance where he's killed just gives him a couple of minutes to head back to the lab, create whatever he needs to level the playing field, and spring back into action. I think he'd even be able to create a virus capable of killing Viltrumites.
Like
mentioning that
virus.
for
Have you been
That makes
sick
sense.
again?
no particular reason. Unfortunately for the haters, Rick is just too OP for a Viltrumite to permanently put him
spoilers.
6
Don't
feet
ask what
under,
the Scourge
especially
virus
when
is.
he's fighting with infinite lives. His endurance would simply outlast theirs, especially because so much of his endurance relies on his pettiness, which he has an endless supply of. He's like a mortal if he didn't suck.
That boy got pettiness in spades.
Samurai Jack is a
Not familiar. Don't know ball. Steven.
This is another show where the
Steven
mirror
Universe.
probably upset some people, but you just gotta hear me out.
Um,
Steven Universe is probably the closest thing Cartoon Network has to a Saiyan. He can fly,
Yeah?
he has super strength, super durability, super speed, enhanced agility, the ability to transform into a giant monster.
I didn't think they had
All the dude is
defeats.
missing is Key Blast. And with his mom being Pink Diamond, one of the most powerful gems in existence, he has a lot of unique abilities like healing, bringing the dead back to life, turning plants and even ordinary
Bringing the dead
rocks
back to
into
life is
living beings
insane.
capable of putting up a fight. He has a supersonic scream that's capable of permanently scarring gems, which his mom did on accident. He can create shields and barriers, which can be deadly. The list goes on. Not to mention, he's only getting stronger with age. He's also been in a similar position to where Mark was in the first 2 seasons, where he tries to hold back, but his emotions have gotten the better of him, and he ended up taking a life for all of
Whoa.
2 seconds. Steven would be a pretty formidable
Yeah.
warrior against a Viltrumite, but unfortunately for his
I don't
fans
think
in
he
the
got it,
audience,
yeah.
there's no shot he wins a fight
Nice.
against one. He
Yeah, I
has the
was
same
right. He
downfall
don't
as
have no
Aang,
stats.
where despite his immense power, he doesn't fight with the intent to kill and wants to avoid such an outcome at all cost. Viltrumites carry the exact opposite sentiment in battle.
Pack
They don't
your
intend to
sh-
leave
up,
their opponents
bruh.
alive, nor do they hold back, which already puts Steven at a disadvantage. Steven has to be pushed to the brink of insanity to reach the point of murder. And I think he only got there with Jasper because she knew how to push his buttons and they have a checkered past. Getting jumped by Omni-Man or Conquest would definitely make him upset, but I think
not
he's
enough to-
prioritizing defense before throwing lethal hands. On
Yeah.
top of all of this, Steven still has a human anatomy, despite being half gem. Meaning if he gets hit hard enough to be impelled through the
He'd be
chest,
cooked.
or any of the other brutal executions we've seen in Invincible, it's game over. They could also just rip out his
Nah,
gem
not
if not
Sans.
shatter it immediately, as Steven cannot survive without it. Though if you unleash just his gem half, that is another can of worms, and it honestly might turn the tides. I think Steven's clearly losing this fight, but I still wanted to throw him in there because he's one of the most powerful Cartoon Network characters in spite of his soft reputation. Now his mom, Pink Diamond, aka Rose Quartz, might be able to actually take on a Viltrumite or two. Not only does she have all of Steven's powers, but she has less qualms of getting her hands dirty if it means protecting human life. Plus, she has very poor impulse control. And since she's fully gem, if she gets poofed, she can just reform. Although there's a big chance that Viltrumite could shatter her gemstone before that happens. Though it's already hard to poof a diamond, they're insanely durable, and the only time Pink was poofed was when she staged her death with a special blade that was designed to cut through any gem's physical form. I don't know. Give Pink some time to process what's going on, should she ever be attacked by Viltrumite, and I think she has a fair shot at packing them up with her supersonic screams and other absurd powers.
True.
Over the past few years, there have been a lot
All right, chat. That was my reaction to this small portion by the Roundtable of cartoons who can beat Omni-Man. Hope y'all enjoyed. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Gave a little bit of my own ball knowledge here. This is my first reaction of the day. It's 4:46 in the morning, but you feel me? We always gonna pull through for the community. Sly always gotta show up for the real Republic, man. Now, I may tell you a joke, but I will never tell you a lie. We locked in, coming consistent with this content. If you like this video, make sure you do like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned, man. We coming out with more and more heat. We started a Reacts channel or Reacts playlist so we can do more reactions. But that was all, man. I appreciate y'all boys. Without further ado, peace.